My name's Wiltshire. I'm the Senior Director of Media Partnerships at Twitter UK, and we work with media rights owners, clubs, leagues, governing bodies, but also in non-sports as well, and help them to connect with their global fan base.
Do you have any sort of clear targets or KPIs that you focus on in your role, or is it about helping clubs and governing bodies to achieve their KPIs?
Yeah, in terms of sport specifically, we're interested in helping organisations reach a global fan base and also to help monetise that as well. So we work with, as you say, clubs, leagues, teams, governing bodies, players, the athletes, to help them to reach a global audience, but also in the case of clubs, then they can also use that to monetise from Twitter as well.
And what's the best advice that you can give them, whether it's a club or a governing body, in terms of how they use Twitter to reach their fans and also to monetise it, as you say?
Yeah, so I'd say authenticity of voice is key, and I think that doesn't just apply to individuals. I think clubs can have an authenticity of voice as well. I think knowing when to join the conversation as well, so jumping in at the right time. And then lastly, I would say being the source of your own information, whether that's breaking news or whether it's video, but being live and jumping in at the right time in a really live conversation, and then joining in with your fans, but being the source of breaking. If you're a club, for example, being the source of breaking news. Actually, players can break their own news as well, but being the one that brings that news to the fans, whether that's in text form or video.
And how would you say rugby is at using Twitter in general? It's a massive generalisation, but in comparison to other sports like football, which is a bigger business.
Yeah, no, really good. I think rugby's fantastic. I think as an industry, I think rugby absolutely gets Twitter. You know, you go from, like, I follow quite a few of the Premiership clubs. I follow England. I follow lots of the players. I personally follow a lot of the 2003 team, but then like right up to date, you know, you look at last year's World Cup, someone like Sonny Bill Williams was using Twitter brilliantly. So there are loads of examples where clubs are using it, the leagues themselves use it, World Rugby use it really effectively, and the players as well. I think rugby absolutely gets Twitter. There's always more that they could do, and I should mention the broadcasters as well, who use Twitter effectively to kind of like flag and sell their coverage of rugby. But I would say it's pretty good.
And in terms of the latest trends in social media and that Twitter are involved in, what are they, and where do you see it going in the next few years?
Well, I think the key thing that will always stay the same is using Twitter to connect in a live environment between clubs, leagues, governing bodies, players, and then on the other hand, the fans. And for fans to be able to use Twitter to really effectively communicate on a day-to-day basis with their heroes, frankly. So, you know, when I was a kid and I would look up to rugby players, football players, you know, you would send them a letter and hope that they maybe one day read it in the post room. Now I can like send a tweet to a player, and I know that the player will see it on their phone, and sometimes they'll respond, and that's an incredible thing for young people growing up, and I think can actually hopefully inspire people to even take up the sport themselves. So I think that won't change, that kind of really intense, live, authentic connection between players and their fans. But then I think the way that would change will be the way that happens. So that could be in text form. Traditionally Twitter's been a text platform, but now increasingly Twitter is a video platform. So it could be in video, and then it could be in live video. So recently, in the last year or so, Twitter launched Periscope, and you can imagine now that will be the type of tool that fans might use. So I think you can see where the connection between players and fans will always be the constant, but the way that they do that will evolve as more and different products launch, like Periscope, for example.
And you mentioned video and broadcasters before, and Twitter obviously signed a deal with the NFL recently. How's that gone down? And also, can you see a similar deal happening in rugby in future, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're really happy to, and we do already, talk to all of the major players in sports and in other industries as well. The NFL deal that you mentioned has been a real success. You know, we've seen millions of people tuning in to watch the games on Twitter. We've had 10, or we will have 10 Thursday night games through the NFL season this year. It's been really successful. We've been really impressed by the way that people have come to Twitter to experience the NFL in a live video environment. And yeah, I mean, we're interested to have conversations with everyone right across the media landscape and watch this space.
Brilliant. And when you work with the NFL, for example, or I know you've had a very close relationship with Wimbledon as well, how does that relationship work, both in terms of input from yourselves and from them, a revenue perspective and a commercial perspective. How does it work in terms of how you divide things up?
Well, it has to work both ways. It has to work for Twitter, and it has to work for the rights holder. But most importantly, it also has to work for the fan. So, we're interested in working with rights holders right across the board, not just in sport, but where there is an opportunity for fans to come to Twitter to connect with a product, a live video product that they really care about. And you can imagine that could be a whole host of things. But I think central for us is giving a kind of really amazing live content experience to the hundreds of millions of people that use Twitter every day.